The black maid broke the first rule of the Duke estate. She spoke without being spoken to. The second rule she shattered was far worse. She looked Wong Duke directly in the eyes and said, "My mom has this split love bracelet." The Wolf of Seoul's face turned the color of ash. Every bodyguard in the marble dining hall froze. The crystal chandelier above seemed to dim. For 25 years, no one had seen the untouchable Mafia King show weakness. But now his hand trembled as he set down his wine glass, red liquid sloshing over the rim like blood. The Duke estate sits on the highest hill in Gangnam, a fortress of old money and older secrets. Inside, the rules are simple. Servants keep their eyes down, their mouths shut, and their questions buried. Mia Pitt learned this her first day when the head housekeeper slapped her wrist for folding a napkin wrong. "Invisible," the woman hissed. "That's what we are." For 3 years, Mia had been invisible. She scrubbed marble that cost more than her mother's medical bills. She polished silverware engraved with dragons she'd never understand. She moved through Wong Duke's world like a shadow, gray uniform, hair pulled so tight it gave her headaches, eyes always on the floor. Her mother, Sarah, was dying. Stage 4 lung cancer. The hospital bills were drowning them both. This job, cleaning the home of Seoul's most feared crime lord, was Mia's last desperate play. The Duke Syndicate owned half the city's underground. Drug routes, protection rackets, luxury fronts. And at the center of it all was Wong Duke himself, a man whose reputation could make grown gangsters weep. Tonight was different. Tonight, the private family dinner was being held in the East Wing. Mia wasn't supposed to be there, she was just a maid, but Mrs. Choi had fallen ill, and someone needed to serve the wine. That's when she saw it. On Wong Duke's finger, a silver ring with a phoenix carved into black jade. But it was broken. Incomplete. The left wing of the phoenix was missing, the edge jagged as if torn away by force. Mia's world tilted. She'd seen that missing piece before. Her mother wore it on a chain around her neck, a bracelet split in half, the right wing of a phoenix dangling against Sarah's hospital gown. "Your father gave me this," her mother had whispered once, delirious with fever. "He promised we'd be together forever." Mia had never believed it. Her mother had never mentioned a name. Never shown a picture. Just that broken bracelet and a story that sounded like fever dreams. But now, staring at the most powerful man in Seoul, Mia felt her hands shake. The wine carafe slipped. It didn't shatter, she caught it, but the sound was enough. Wong Duke's eyes lifted. Cold. Calculating. The kind of eyes that had ordered executions over dinner. Mia should have bowed. Should have apologized. Should have disappeared. Instead, she heard herself speak. "My mom has this split love bracelet." The room went silent. Duke's cousin, Min Ho, leaned forward in his white suit, gold chains glinting like a predator sensing blood. The bodyguard's hands drifted toward concealed weapons. But Wong Duke didn't move. He just stared at Mia as if she'd risen from a grave he'd buried long ago. Then, barely a whisper, "What did you say?" Mia's throat was dry. She was breaking every rule. She was a dead woman. But something in his face, something cracking beneath that cold mask, made her continue. "A bracelet. Silver. With half a phoenix." Her voice steadied. She said the man who gave it to her said they'd find each other again. No matter what. Wong Duke stood slowly. The chair scraped against marble like a coffin lid opening. His face had gone pale. Absolutely bloodless. "Where," he said, his voice shaking for the first time in decades, "is your mother?" Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you just to know how far our story is going. The black sedan cut through Los Angeles traffic like a knife through silk. Mia sat in the back, pressed against the leather seat, watching Wong Duke's reflection in the tinted window. He hadn't spoken since they left the estate. His jaw was locked tight, hands folded in his lap, but she could see the tremor in his fingers. "Mr. Duke," she started. "Don't." His voice was raw. "Don't say anything until I see her." The ride to Mia's apartment in Koreatown took 30 minutes. It felt like 30 hours. The neighborhood was a world away from Gangnam Hills, cracked sidewalks, laundromats with flickering signs, the smell of grilled meat mixing with exhaust fumes. Duke's driver hesitated at the corner, clearly uncomfortable parking a $200,000 car in this part of town. Duke stepped out before the car fully stopped. Mia led him up 3 flights of stairs in a building that smelled like kimchi and mildew. Her hands shook as she unlocked the door to apartment 3C. Inside, the space was barely larger than Duke's walk-in closet. A kitchenette with a hot plate. A bathroom with a shower curtain held up by duct tape. And in the corner, on a hospital bed the insurance company had delivered last month, lay Sarah Pitt. She was sleeping. An oxygen tube ran beneath her nose. Her skin had the translucent quality of the very ill, but even now, even ravaged by cancer, Mia could see the beauty her mother must have been. High cheekbones. Graceful hands resting on the thin blanket. Around her neck, on a silver chain, hung half a bracelet. Duke made a sound like he'd been shot. He crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside the bed. His hand reached out, trembling, toward the bracelet but stopped inches away, as if touching it might make it disappear. "Sarah," he whispered. Her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, there was only confusion. Then recognition hit like lightning. "Duke." Her voice was paper-thin. "No. You're not real. You're the fever again. I'm real." He touched her face with such tenderness that Mia had to look away. "God, Sarah, I'm real." Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks. "They told me you were dead. Your father said." "I know." Duke pulled the ring from his finger, the one with half the phoenix. He held it next to Sarah's bracelet. The break lines matched perfectly, 2 pieces of a whole that had been separated for 25 years. "I know what he told you. I know what he told me." Mia watched her mother reach up with shaking hands to touch Duke's face, as if confirming he was solid, real, alive. "Our baby," Sarah said suddenly, panic flooding her eyes. "Duke, our baby. The fire. I couldn't find her." "I'm here, Mama." Mia moved closer, and both of them turned to look at her. "I'm here." Duke stood slowly. He looked at Mia as if seeing her for the first time. His eyes traced her features, Sarah's soft mouth, but his sharp cheekbones. Sarah's warm brown eyes, but his unwavering gaze. "You're mine," he said, not a question. A fact. A truth that had been hidden for a quarter century. "You're my daughter." The wolf of Seoul, the man who'd built an empire on fear, dropped his cold mask. Tears ran down his face unchecked. "I have a daughter." Duke didn't leave. He made calls from Mia's tiny apartment, his voice sharp and commanding as he barked orders in Korean. Within an hour, a private medical team arrived. Real doctors, not the overworked residents from County General. They examined Sarah while Duke paced the small space like a caged animal. "Lung cancer, stage 4, the lead doctor reported in accented English. "But not terminal. Not if we act immediately." "Do it," Duke said. "Whatever it costs." Mia sat on the edge of her mother's bed, holding Sarah's hand while the doctors prepared to transport her to Cedars-Sinai. Sarah kept looking between Mia and Duke, her expression caught between wonder and heartbreak. "Tell me," Sarah said quietly, squeezing Mia's hand. "Tell me what happened that night." Duke stopped pacing. The room fell silent except for the quiet beep of Sarah's oxygen monitor. "My father," he began, his voice hollow. "He found out about you. About us." Sarah closed her eyes as if the memory itself caused physical pain. "You were black. I was the heir to a Korean crime syndicate." He saw it as a stain on the family legacy. Duke's hands clenched into fists. "He told me you'd been paid off. That you'd taken money and disappeared. That you'd gotten an abortion and moved to New York." "No," Sarah breathed. "He showed me documents. Bank transfers. A signed statement. All forgeries, I realized later, but at the time." Duke's voice cracked. "I believed him. I thought you'd chosen money over me. Over our child." "And he told me you were dead," Sarah said, tears streaming freely now. "He came to my apartment the day before the fire. He said you'd been killed in a gang war. That if I truly loved you, I'd disappear and take the baby with me. Keep her safe from your enemies." Mia felt like she'd been punched. "The fire wasn't an accident." "No." Duke's expression turned to stone. "My father hired men to burn your building. To erase evidence of the affair. To kill you both." Sarah's breath caught. "But we survived." "Barely," Mia added, remembering the stories her mother had told her. The neighbor who'd pulled them from the smoke. The months in a women's shelter. The years of running, always looking over their shoulder, never understanding why. My father told me both of you had died in that fire, Duke continued. He showed me the police report. Said it was drug dealers, wrong place, wrong time. I believed that too. His voice turned bitter. I became what he wanted. Cold. Ruthless. I built the syndicate into an empire, and I did it with no heart because I thought my heart had burned to ash 25 years ago. He turned to face them both, and in his eyes, Mia saw something she'd never seen in a man like him, regret. I've done terrible things, he said. I've hurt people. Killed people. All because I thought I had nothing left to lose. Sarah reached out her hand. Duke took it, and for a moment, they just held each other, two people who'd lost everything and somehow found each other again. We have a daughter, Sarah whispered. Duke, look at her. We made something beautiful. Duke looked at Mia. Really looked at her. And she saw his expression shift from grief to something fiercer. Protective. No one will ever hurt you again, he said, and it wasn't a promise, it was a vow. Either of you. I swear it. By morning, Sarah was installed in the best private suite at Cedars-Sinai. Mia sat in a chair by the window, watching her mother sleep peacefully for the first time in months. The oxygen tube was gone. Color was already returning to her cheeks. The doctors had started an aggressive treatment protocol that Duke's money had made possible. Duke stood at the window, staring out at the Los Angeles skyline. He hadn't slept. Hadn't eaten. He'd spent the night making phone calls, arranging treatments, and unraveling 25 years of lies. He's still alive, Duke said quietly. My father. Mia looked up. What? In a care facility in Seoul. Dementia. Duke's laugh was bitter. He doesn't even remember what he did. Doesn't remember you, Sarah, any of it. Are you going to? Mia didn't finish the question. Kill him. Duke turned from the window. No. That would be mercy. Instead, I'm cutting off his funding. He'll spend whatever time he has left in a state facility, wondering where his son went. It should have felt cruel. Instead, it felt like justice. What happens now? Mia asked. Duke crossed the room and sat in the chair next to hers. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the weight of decades of violence pressing down on him. I've spent 25 years being a monster, he said. Building power, crushing enemies, ruling through fear. And all of it, every bit of it, was built on a lie. You didn't know, Mia said. Does that matter? Duke looked at her with haunted eyes. I've destroyed lives. Families. I've become exactly what my father wanted me to be. But you don't have to stay that way. Mia leaned forward. You have a chance now. To be different. To be better. Duke was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out the broken ring, the half-phoenix that had started all of this. This was supposed to be a promise, he said. That love could survive anything. That we'd find each other no matter what. He looked at Sarah, sleeping peacefully in the hospital bed. It took 25 years, but here we are. So what now? Mia asked again. Duke stood. When he looked at her this time, there was steel in his gaze. Now, he said, you come home. The Duke estate had never seen anything like it. Servants whispered in corners as Wong Duke himself carried Sarah across the threshold of the master wing. Mia followed, still wearing her gray maid's uniform, but now walking with her head held high. Mrs. Choi, the head housekeeper who'd slapped Mia's wrist 3 years ago, stood frozen in the hallway. Prepare the east bedroom suite, Duke ordered. Sarah will stay there during her recovery. Sir. Mrs. Choi's voice was faint. But that's the family wing. Only blood relatives. She is family. Duke's voice could have cut glass. And so is her daughter. My daughter. The whispers exploded into gasps. Duke didn't stop. He carried Sarah to the suite, a sprawling room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Los Angeles hills, and laid her gently on a bed that probably cost more than Mia had earned in her entire life. Rest, he told Sarah, kissing her forehead. You're safe now. Then he turned to Mia. Come with me. He led her through corridors she'd only ever cleaned, past rooms she'd never been allowed to enter. Finally, they reached the formal dining room. The table was set for breakfast, crystal and silver and enough food for 20 people. At the head of the table sat Min Ho, Duke's cousin, dressed in his signature white suit. He looked up as they entered, and his expression shifted from bored to shocked to suspicious in the span of a heartbeat. "Cousin," Minho said slowly. "Why is the maid here?" "Her name is Mia," Duke said. "And she's not a maid. She's my daughter." Minho's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. "Impossible. You don't have children. You never married." "I was going to marry her mother." Duke pulled out a chair at the opposite end of the table and gestured for Mia to sit. She did, her heart pounding. 25 years ago. My father made sure that didn't happen. Mia sat at the head of the table, directly across from Minho. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone in the room. The other syndicate members who'd gathered for breakfast, lieutenants, enforcers, businessmen in expensive suits, stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "This is insane," Minho said, but his voice had an edge of panic. "You can't she's nobody. A maid. You have no proof." Duke pulled out the ring and placed it on the table. Then he pulled out Sarah's half of the bracelet, which he'd temporarily removed while she slept. He clicked them together. The phoenix was whole again. "I have all the proof I need," Duke said quietly. "Mia is my heir." The room erupted. Lieutenants shouted. Minho stood so violently his chair fell backward. But Duke's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Anyone who has a problem with this can leave. Now." Silence fell. No one moved. In the syndicate, leaving Wong Duke's table was a death sentence. "That's what I thought," Duke said. He turned to Mia. "Eat. You're part of this family now." Mia looked down at the spread before her, food she'd served but never tasted. Then she looked at Minho, whose face had gone from shocked to calculating. She'd just become the biggest threat to his power. And from the look in his eyes, he was already planning how to eliminate her. Minho waited 3 days before making his move. 3 days of watching the maid sit at Duke's right hand. 3 days of enduring whispers about the Black Daughter, the lost heir, the Cinderella story. 3 days of his inheritance slipping through his fingers. He made the call from a burner phone in a nightclub in Little Tokyo. "I have a proposition," he said in Japanese. The voice on the other end belonged to Kenji Yamamoto, head of the Yamamoto Gumi, the largest Yakuza family on the West Coast. They'd been at war with the Duke Syndicate for territory in the port of Los Angeles for 5 years. "I'm listening," Kenji said. "Wong Duke has a weakness now. A daughter. He's gone soft." Minho watched the dancers on the floor, but his mind was calculating angles, opportunities. "Help me remove him, and we'll split his territory. 50-50. And the girl? Collateral damage." There was a pause. Then, "I'll need assurances. Proof you can deliver." "You'll have it." Minho smiled. "Duke's planning a gala next week to introduce his heir to the syndicate's allies. Everyone will be there. All the major players." "Sounds like a perfect opportunity." "Doesn't it?" Minho ended the call and crushed the burner phone under his heel. Back at the estate, Mia was learning that being Duke's daughter meant living in a gilded cage. She had guards now. 2 men in black suits who followed her everywhere. When she asked Duke about it, he'd simply said, "You're valuable now. People will try to use that against me." He wasn't wrong. Sarah's treatments were working. She could walk now, breathe without the oxygen. Color had returned to her face. But she stayed in the estate, surrounded by nurses and guards, a prisoner in paradise. "I don't like this," Sarah told Mia one afternoon while they sat in the garden. "This world. This life. It's dangerous." "It's Father's world," Mia said, testing out the word. It still felt strange on her tongue. "I know." Sarah touched the bracelet around her neck, now whole again, both halves united. "And I love him. God help me, after everything, I still love him. But Mia, you don't have to stay. You can walk away from all of this. And go where?" Mia looked out at the manicured gardens, the marble fountains, the armed guards at every entrance. Back to Koreatown? Back to scrubbing floors. Back to being free. Mia thought about that. Freedom. She'd been free her whole life, free and invisible and powerless. Now she had power. She had a father who would burn the world for her. She had money, protection, a legacy. But Sarah was right. She was also trapped. "I want to learn," Mia said finally. I want father to teach me how this works. How to survive in his world. Sarah looked at her daughter with sad, knowing eyes. You sound like him already. That evening, Minho sat in Duke's study, reviewing shipment manifests and pretending everything was normal. Duke walked in, and Minho immediately stood. Cousin, he said smoothly. I wanted to discuss the gala. The guest list is extensive. Are you sure it's wise to expose Mia to so many? She needs to be seen, Duke interrupted. The syndicate needs to know she's real. That she's mine. Of course. Minho bowed slightly. I just worry about her safety. There are factions that won't accept her. You know this. Let them try something. Duke's smile was cold. It'll save me the trouble of rooting out the traitors. Minho maintained his smile, but inside, he was already adjusting his plan. Duke was expecting an attack. That made things more complicated. But not impossible. Power, Duke said, circling Mia like a predator studying prey, is not about strength. It's about perception. They were in his private office, the one with soundproof walls and no windows. Mia sat at his desk, trying to look confident while her father taught her the family business. When you walk into a room, everyone makes a calculation, Duke continued. Are you a threat? An asset? A weakness to exploit? He stopped behind her chair. Right now, they see you as my weakness. Because I'm new to this. Because you're a woman. Because you're black. Because you came from nothing. Duke's voice was matter-of-fact. They'll underestimate you. That's your advantage. He pulled up a chair and sat across from her. Between them, he spread out photographs. Men in expensive suits, some Asian, some white, some Latino. All of them looked dangerous. These are the syndicate's lieutenants. The ones who matter. He tapped the first photo. Park Jin-soo. Runs our gambling operations in Vegas. Former ROK military. Respects strength. He moved to the next. Tommy Nguyen. Street racing and chop shops. He's loyal, but his brother wants his position. Photo after photo. Duke's voice never wavered, giving her a crash course in the empire he'd built. How do you keep them all in line? Mia asked. Fear. Money. Loyalty, in that order. Duke leaned back. But the real question is, how will you keep them in line? Mia looked at the photographs. These men had decades of experience. They'd killed, stolen, built their own small kingdoms under Duke's banner. What did she have? I don't know, she admitted. Good. Duke smiled. That's the first honest thing you've said. Never pretend to know something you don't. In this business, ignorance gets you killed, but false confidence gets everyone around you killed. He stood and walked to the window. The gala is in 4 days. Every major player in the West Coast underworld will be there. They're coming to see if I've gone soft. If my black daughter is a liability. And what do you want me to show them? Duke turned, and in his eyes, Mia saw the wolf of Seoul. I want you to show them that you're my daughter. Not despite what you've been through, but because of it. He crossed back to her. You've survived poverty. Invisibility. You've watched your mother dying and kept fighting. That's not weakness, Mia. That's steel wrapped in silk. Over the next 4 days, Duke put her through a brutal education. He taught her how to read body language, how to spot a lie, how to command a room with nothing but silence. He introduced her to the lieutenants one by one, watching how they reacted to her, how she handled their skepticism and barely veiled contempt. Jin-soo thinks you're a joke, Duke told her after one meeting. He called you the charity case, behind your back. I know, Mia said. I could see it in his eyes. And I let him think it. Mia met her father's gaze. Because you're right. Being underestimated is an advantage. Duke smiled. It was the first time she'd seen genuine pride in his expression. But not everyone was adapting to the new reality. Minho watched from the shadows as Duke transformed his daughter from a maid into an heir. He watched as Sarah's health improved, as the split love bracelet story spread through the syndicate like wildfire. He watched as his own position grew weaker by the day. The night before the gala, Minho made his final preparations. The Yamamoto Gumi had people in place. The guards were bribed. The exits were mapped. Tomorrow, the Duke Syndicate would have a new leader. And it wouldn't be the Maid. Power, Duke said, circling Mia like a predator studying prey, is not about strength. It's about perception. They were in his private office, the one with soundproof walls and no windows. Mia sat at his desk, trying to look confident while her father taught her the family business. When you walk into a room, everyone makes a calculation, Duke continued. Are you a threat? An asset? A weakness to exploit? He stopped behind her chair. Right now, they see you as my weakness. Because I'm new to this. Because you're a woman. Because you're black. Because you came from nothing. Duke's voice was matter-of-fact. They'll underestimate you. That's your advantage. He pulled up a chair and sat across from her. Between them, he spread out photographs. Men in expensive suits, some Asian, some white, some Latino. All of them looked dangerous. These are the Syndicate's lieutenants. The ones who matter. He tapped the first photo. Park Jin-soo. Runs our gambling operations in Vegas. Former ROK military. Respects strength. He moved to the next. Tommy Nguyen. Street racing and chop shops. He's loyal, but his brother wants his position. Photo after photo. Duke's voice never wavered, giving her a crash course in the empire he'd built. How do you keep them all in line? Mia asked. Fear. Money. Loyalty, in that order. Duke leaned back. But the real question is, how will you keep them in line? Mia looked at the photographs. These men had decades of experience. They'd killed, stolen, built their own small kingdoms under Duke's banner. What did she have? I don't know, she admitted. Good. Duke smiled. That's the first honest thing you've said. Never pretend to know something you don't. In this business, ignorance gets you killed, but false confidence gets everyone around you killed. He stood and walked to the window. The gala is in 4 days. Every major player in the West Coast underworld will be there. They're coming to see if I've gone soft. If my black daughter is a liability. And what do you want me to show them? Duke turned, and in his eyes, Mia saw the wolf of Seoul. I want you to show them that you're my daughter. Not despite what you've been through, but because of it. He crossed back to her. You've survived poverty. Invisibility. You've watched your mother dying and kept fighting. That's not weakness, Mia. That's steel wrapped in silk. Over the next 4 days, Duke put her through a brutal education. He taught her how to read body language, how to spot a lie, how to command a room with nothing but silence. He introduced her to the lieutenants one by one, watching how they reacted to her, how she handled their skepticism and barely veiled contempt. Jin-soo thinks you're a joke, Duke told her after one meeting. He called you the charity case, behind your back. I know, Mia said. I could see it in his eyes. And I let him think it. Mia met her father's gaze. Because you're right. Being underestimated is an advantage. Duke smiled. It was the first time she'd seen genuine pride in his expression. But not everyone was adapting to the new reality. Minho watched from the shadows as Duke transformed his daughter from a maid into an heir. He watched as Sarah's health improved, as the split love bracelet story spread through the syndicate like wildfire. He watched as his own position grew weaker by the day. The night before the gala, Minho made his final preparations. The Yamamoto Gumi had people in place. The guards were bribed. The exits were mapped. Tomorrow, the Duke Syndicate would have a new leader. And it wouldn't be the Maid. The gala was magnificent. 300 of the most powerful criminals on the West Coast filled the Duke Estate's ballroom. Mia stood beside her father, wearing the half-bracelet proudly on her wrist, and watched as sharks in designer suits sized her up. That's the daughter? She heard someone whisper. From a black woman. Can you believe it? Duke's gone soft. This won't last. Mia kept her face neutral. Let them underestimate her. Let them think she was weak. Duke stood and tapped his glass. The room fell silent. Thank you all for coming, he said in English, then repeated it in Korean. I've called you here to introduce someone very important to me. My daughter, Mia Pitt. Applause followed. Some genuine, most polite, some barely concealed hostility. Mia will be taking a leadership role in the syndicate, Duke continued. Learning the business. Eventually, she'll inherit everything I've built. The whispers exploded. Duke ignored them. Anyone who has a problem with this can voice their concerns now, he said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Or forever hold their peace. No one spoke. Fear was a powerful motivator. The dinner began. Mia found herself seated between a Russian arms dealer and a Chinese triad lieutenant. Both ignored her completely, talking over her head in their respective languages. She smiled, ate her food, and said nothing. Halfway through the main course, Duke's head of security whispered something in his ear. Duke's expression barely changed, but Mia caught the slight tightening of his jaw. Excuse me, Duke said, standing. I'll return shortly. He left the table. Mia watched him go, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Mia stood. I need to find my father. The guards at the door tried to stop her. Miss Pitt, Mr. Duke said to stay. I don't care what he said. She pushed past them and headed into the corridor. The estate was a maze, but she followed the sounds of raised voices to Duke's private study. The door was closed. She could hear arguing inside, Duke's voice, sharp and angry, and others she didn't recognize. Mia pressed her ear to the door. Betrayed us, Duke was saying. Who gave the Yamamoto Gumi access to our shipping schedules? We don't know, another voice responded. But sir, there's more. The guards in the East Wing just reported that Mrs. Pitt is missing. Mia's blood ran cold. She burst through the door. Duke spun, his hand going to the gun under his jacket, but he froze when he saw her. Mia! Mom's missing? Mia's voice was high, panicked. What do you mean missing? I was just informed. A gun fired somewhere in the house. Then another. Duke grabbed Mia and pulled her behind his desk as the study door burst open. But instead of his guards, 3 men in black tactical gear stormed in, Yakuza, from the tattoos visible on their necks. Duke fired first. 1 man went down. The second got a shot off that tore through Duke's shoulder. He stumbled, and Mia screamed. The 3rd man aimed at Duke's head. Mia grabbed a crystal paperweight from the desk and threw it. It hit the man's temple with a sickening crack. He dropped. Run! Duke shouted, but she could see blood pouring from his shoulder. He couldn't run. Could barely stand. No. Mia grabbed his good arm and hauled him toward the private exit behind the bookshelf. I'm not leaving you. They stumbled into the corridor as more gunfire erupted behind them. The gala had turned into a war zone. Screaming, running, the smell of gunpowder thick in the air. Sarah, Duke gasped. We have to find Sarah. Where would they take her? The wine cellar. Duke's face was pale from blood loss. That's where Min-ho is locked up. Or was. They made it to the service stairs and descended. Duke's blood left a trail on the walls. When they reached the wine cellar, the door was open and all 4 guards were dead. Inside, Sarah was tied to a chair. Min-ho stood behind her, a knife to her throat. Finally, Min-ho said. I was wondering how long it would take you to figure it out. Let her go, Duke said. He raised his gun, but his hand was shaking. I don't think so. Min-ho smiled. See, this is how it should have been from the beginning. You, dead. Me, in charge. No distractions. No weakness. The Yamamoto Gumi? Mia asked, stalling. Promise them your territory in exchange for men and support. Min-ho shrugged. Once you're dead, I'll renegotiate. Maybe keep it all for myself. You'll never hold the syndicate, Duke said. You're weak. The lieutenants will eat you alive. Maybe. The knife pressed closer to Sarah's throat, drawing a line of blood. But I'll have fun trying. Duke fired. The shot went wide, his shoulder making his aim terrible. Min-ho laughed. Pathetic. The great Wong Duke, brought down by love. Mia stepped forward. You said I don't belong here. Min-ho's eyes flicked to her. You don't. You're right. Mia's voice was steady. I don't belong in your world. In this old dying version of the syndicate that values bloodline over ability. Race over loyalty. She stepped closer. But that world is ending. And the new one? The one my father built? I belong there. You're nobody, Minho spat. A maid playing dress-up. I'm Wong Duke's daughter. Mia's voice rose. And I'm going to watch you die. She dove forward, grabbing Minho's knife hand. He was stronger, but she was desperate. They struggled. The knife slashed across her arm, but she didn't let go. Duke couldn't get a clear shot with them grappling. Sarah, still tied to the chair, threw her weight sideways. The chair crashed into Minho's legs, and he stumbled. Mia twisted the knife and drove it into his thigh. Minho screamed and fell. Duke was on him in seconds, gun pressed to his cousin's head. Wait, Mia said. Duke looked at her, surprised. Don't kill him yet, Mia said. We need him. The Yamamoto Gumi think he's their partner. We can use that. Duke stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, he smiled. You really are my daughter. They left Minho bleeding in the wine cellar and returned upstairs to chaos. The Yakuza assault had been repelled, but bodies littered the ballroom. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called 911. We need to leave, Duke's security chief said. Now. No. Duke's voice was steady despite his wound. We're not running. Sir. Mia, Duke said. The bracelet. Give it to me. Confused, Mia unclasped the half-bracelet from her wrist. Duke took it, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a small black device, a keycard reader. The bracelet isn't just jewelry, he said. It's a key. Both halves together unlock the syndicate's secure network. Bank accounts, shipping routes, personnel files, everything. He pressed both halves of the bracelet to the reader. It beeped. Now, Duke said, handing Mia his phone. You're going to send a message to every lieutenant in the syndicate. Tell them Minho betrayed us. Tell them the Yamamoto Gumi attacked us with his help. They won't believe me, Mia said. They will when you freeze their accounts. Mia looked at the phone. The syndicate's entire financial network was open, waiting for her command. If I freeze their accounts, they'll panic, she said. Yes, Duke said. And panic makes people desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. We'll unfreeze the accounts of everyone who publicly declares loyalty to me in the next hour. The rest. He shrugged with his good shoulder. They can starve. It was ruthless. It was brilliant. Mia's fingers flew across the phone, executing the commands. Within minutes, syndicate members around the West Coast found their accounts empty. Their phones started ringing. The messages flooded in. I stand with Duke. Minho was always a snake. Loyalty to the family. One by one, the lieutenants fell in line. The ones who didn't, the ones who stayed silent or tried to reach out to the Yamamoto Gumi, Mia flagged for Duke's security team. That's how you control an empire, Duke said, watching her work. Not with fear alone. With systems. With leverage. By the time the police arrived, the narrative was set. A home invasion by unknown assailants. Duke's lawyers were already spinning the story. The syndicate had mobilized to protect its own. And in the wine cellar, Minho realized he'd lost. Mia found him there an hour later, still tied up, still bleeding. You destroyed me, he said. My accounts, my contacts, everything. No. Mia crouched down to his level. You destroyed yourself. You forgot the first rule, loyalty above all. Loyalty? Minho laughed bitterly. You lecture me about loyalty? You've been part of this family for 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, I've learned more about loyalty than you did in 40 years. Mia stood. My mother was loyal to a man she thought was dead for 25 years. My father built an empire while mourning a family he thought he'd lost. And me? She smiled. I'm loyal to the people who've given me a chance. Who see me as more than a maid. More than a mistake. She turned to leave. What happens to me? Minho called. That's up to my father, Mia said. But if I were you, I'd pray he's merciful. Duke wasn't merciful. When Mia found him, his shoulder bandaged and his face grim, he told her Minho would be sent to Korea. Permanently. There's a facility there, Duke said. For people who betrayed the family. He'll live. But he'll never be free. Good, Mia said, surprised by how much she meant it. Sarah appeared in the doorway, pale but alive. Duke went to her immediately, and they held each other like the world might end. Mia watched her parents and realized something fundamental had shifted. She wasn't the maid anymore. Wasn't the lost daughter. She was something new. Something dangerous. She was the heir to an empire. 2 weeks later, the Duke's syndicate held a second gala. This one was quieter, more intimate. Only the most loyal lieutenants were invited. Mia stood at the entrance to the ballroom wearing a new dress, gold and black, with a complete bracelet displayed prominently on her wrist. Sarah stood beside her, healthy now, radiant, wearing a matching gold gown. Duke appeared last, his shoulder healed, wearing a suit that somehow made him look both elegant and deadly. "Ready?" he asked Mia. "No," she admitted. "But I'll do it anyway." The three of them walked into the ballroom together. A family reunited. A dynasty reborn. Park Jin-soo, the lieutenant who'd called Mia a charity case, was the first to approach. "Miss Pitt," he said, bowing low. "I owe you an apology. I underestimated you." "Yes," Mia said simply. "You did. It won't happen again." "No," Mia agreed. "It won't." One by one, the lieutenants approached. Some genuinely apologetic, others clearly terrified, but all of them respectful. The message had been received. Mia wasn't just Duke's daughter. She was his successor. The evening progressed. Business was discussed. Alliances were confirmed. And through it all, Mia stood at her father's side, learning, absorbing, becoming. Near the end of the night, Duke took the microphone. 25 years ago, he said, his voice carrying across the room, I lost everything that mattered. My family. My heart. My reason for living. He looked at Sarah. I spent those years building power, because power was all I had left. He turned to Mia. But now I have my family back. My daughter. My love. My future. He raised his glass. I spent 25 years being a monster. Now I have a chance to be a man again. And Mia, my daughter, will build something better than what I created. Something stronger. Something that values loyalty over bloodline. Ability over tradition. He held out his hand. Mia, come here. Mia walked to him on shaking legs. Duke pulled something from his pocket, a second phoenix ring, identical to his own but smaller. This was supposed to be your mother's, he said. But I think it suits you better. He slipped the ring onto Mia's finger. It fit perfectly. The room erupted in applause. Duke leaned close and whispered, You're not just my heir. You're my redemption. Don't let me down. I won't, Mia whispered back. And she meant it. Later that night, after the guests had left and the estate had fallen quiet, Mia found herself in the garden with Sarah. The two of them sat on a bench beneath the stars, the bracelet glinting in the moonlight. Do you regret it? Sarah asked quietly. Stepping into this world? Mia thought about that. About the violence, the danger, the constant threat. About Minho's knife and the Yakuza assault and the blood on the wine cellar floor. Then she thought about her father's pride. About saving her mother's life. About standing in that ballroom and seeing hundreds of the most dangerous people on the West Coast bow to her. No, Mia said. I don't regret it. Good. Sarah took her daughter's hand. Because you're going to change everything. I can feel it. Inside the estate, Duke stood at the window of his study, watching his daughter and the woman he'd loved for 25 years. Behind him, a map of the West Coast was spread across his desk, marked with territories, operations, and opportunities. He'd spent decades building an empire on fear and blood. Now, with Mia, he could build something better. Something that would last. The phoenix had risen from the ashes. And this time, it would never fall again. The Wolf of Seoul had finally found his heart again. Wang Duke, the man who'd ruled through fear for 25 years, now stood in his garden watching the two women who'd changed everything. Sarah, the love he thought he'd lost to flames and lies. And Mia, the daughter who'd risen from maid to heir, from invisible to unstoppable. The bracelet that had been split for a quarter century was whole again. Just like their family. Minho was gone, shipped off to a Korean facility where traitors spent their remaining days. The Yamamoto Gumi had retreated, their alliance shattered, their invasion repelled. And the Duke's syndicate stood stronger than ever, not because of fear, but because of loyalty earned, not demanded. Mia looked down at the phoenix ring on her finger. It caught the light from the estate, glinting gold and black. She was no longer the woman who'd scrubbed these floors. She was the golden heir, the daughter of the dragon, the future of an empire. Are you happy? Sarah asked softly. Mia thought about everything she'd gained, and everything she'd had to become to keep it. I'm alive, she said. I'm powerful, and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Sarah smiled and kissed her daughter's forehead. Then that's all that matters. Inside, Duke made one final call. To his contacts in Korea. To the facility where his father lived, lost in the fog of dementia, unaware of what he'd destroyed. Cut his funding completely, Duke said. Let him rot. He hung up and looked at the photograph on his desk, a picture from tonight's gala. Him, Sarah, and Mia. A family reborn. A dynasty secured. 25 years of being a monster. But maybe, just maybe, he could spend the next 25 being a father instead. The phoenix had risen. And it would never fall again. If you enjoyed this story of love, betrayal, and redemption, please hit that like button. It helps us know you want more stories like this. Subscribe so you never miss the next chapter of drama, power, and family secrets. Share this video with anyone who loves epic revenge stories and second chances. And comment below where you're watching from. I want to say hello and see how far our stories are reaching across the world. What did you think of Mia's transformation? Should Duke give Minho a second chance, or was his punishment too kind? Drop your thoughts in the comments. More stories coming soon. Until then, stay powerful, stay loyal, and remember, the phoenix always rises.